So here we are, guys. Here we are at the long-awaited development pipeline. I appreciate each and every one of you guys being here today. We've got Luthius and Owyn here in Discord with me. We did a mic check. Everything should be good. I've turned off the alerts, and we're set. Luthius, say hello.
Howdy.
Owyn, you there?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'm excited. So I'm just gonna say, hey, Luthius, if you want to jump right in, man, and let's see what you got in store for the Outlands.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah. So this pipeline's maybe a little different than some of the past ones. It's not. Some of the ones we've had before took about 2-3 hours to go through. This will be a bit shorter. Also, some of the stuff we originally had that were for character creation and the new player quests were in the pipeline, and then we kind of accelerated that into testing. But I think there's still some good stuff in here. On that note, we still have seer quests on the pipeline here, which is basically a few months ago we decided we'd probably want to do a little more involved types of something more than society jobs, but then also kind of ties into what our event staff have been doing with more interactive type of things players can work on. And so we're going to be doing seer quests mostly by Eric and Natropa. And the idea with these is that we have the Aberdonian library, and probably a lot of these quests are going to be stationed near there. But essentially be kind of quests that some will be reoccurring, some will be part of a chain, some will have kind of like longer lasting effects. But in general, you're going to see a little more complicated type of interactions than you would with the new player quests that we have, which are mostly just to get players going, and these are give players a little more interesting things to work on. Also in the pipeline here, I do have some of the explanations that you can see already in the new player quests, as far as how the quest list works, how quest notifications work, pop-ups. Kept them in there just for people who haven't seen them yet. But that's probably... We're still kind of working out the details and how some of the quest stuff's going to work, but you can probably get a good idea from looking at the top example. All of my quest examples I've used have puns in them. That's just kind of how I operate. So the Crawling All Adventures is kind of an example of what I envision these quests would be like.
Crawling All Adventures, yeah, I like it.
all the ones I did during development of this had like banana and monkey themed quest points and tasks and things. I don't know why I think maybe in the first graphic I came across, then I'm like, okay, I'm using that for everything.
Barrel of bananas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Benedict banana barrel, and so that kind of covers it. I guess just there'll be more stuff coming up pretty soon explaining what we're looking for these quests, but that's kind of just a general summary of what players expect.
And it's probably on here, but I see the library codex coin as the rewards and stuff. So I get
go
ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, yeah. So that was, the idea with that is that we're probably going to mimic a little bit what we did for Eric and I set up for the Infinity Market for Time Dungeons. So the idea is that you'd have a currency as a coin. Is one type of reward would be a currency, and then you can spend that currency at a equivalent type of NPC shopkeeper market type thing.
I built the Prevalia library for Eric a few years ago, and he quickly outgrew it. And once I gave him the keys to the map making program, he started to build a library. And it's huge, and it's sprawling and continues to sprawl. And he is using that as sort of headquarters for this quest system. So it's very much a seer-driven, role-playing driven quest system.
Yeah.
And all of the functionality from this system is based on requests from the seer team. So this will be dynamic and expansive and continue to grow, something that the seers can build out with the players who want to engage with the library and with the world in a different way than they have before.
We'll probably see a pretty decent influx of role players and role-playing guilds and things like that, I would imagine. That's cool. I like it.
Yeah, this has been available on the test shard for a while now. And sadly, the Prevalian library has been left vacant in exchange for the massive Aberdonian library that Eric has built. So it's just an interesting shift there, and will be the basis for this system.
Which, by the way, everybody, you can go look at that library on test. That's correct, right, guys? Right now?
Yeah, I think Eric has it set up right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool.
And you will cover the Sanctuary Dungeon?
Yeah, as we're building out the new player system, including a variety of updates and YouTube tutorials, and using this quest system now to give new players a leg up. One major issue that we've run into is as new players leave Shelter Island and then navigate out into the world, they inevitably encounter other players and PKs who are interested in preying on the weakest amongst us. So one idea that I had was to build another sort of in-city, in-town dungeon. And I'd been playing with this idea of Prevalia Sewers since long before we launched, and it was always one of those sub-dungeons that never really got completely fleshed out. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to implement the Prevalia Sewers now. The idea is that there will be multiple entrances throughout Prevalia for players to enter into the Prevalia Sewers, and they can treat it as a stepping stone that goes from beyond the new player dungeon, but before they venture out to Urukton Bluffs or to Ratman Hobble or whatever the weekly rotating Sanctuary dungeon is, just to give them a leg up to get started within a relatively safe area. So this will ideally be rolled out with the new player system. May not. I'm making some modifications to make it work perfectly with the current layout of Prevalia, but the goal is that this will roll out with the new player patch that's currently testing.
Do you think that a majority of that new player quest, at least the beginning ones, would probably filter them to this Sanctuary Prevalia Sewers, or is that just kind of it may send you anywhere?
So
right now,
go for it.
No, I was going to say right now it's not, because I told Luthius that I wasn't done yet. So he's basing all of that work around the idea that I'm not finished this particular project. But maybe in the future there will be additional quests or things that will direct players into these spaces.
Thank you for.
Well, I know that. So we have one of the initial quests you get that for the new player quest we were doing is the Rune Tome one. And that NPC is right outside of the new player dungeon, so it's kind of hard to miss that one. And that one, if you do the quest, you get a rune tome that has a bunch of pre-listed rune entries in there. One of them being, all of the Sanctuary dungeons are listed in there. I also updated the Atlas new player section to have the basically all those same sort of points we want new players to check out. So I'm hoping between those two things, that'll give people who are starting out a little more of a guideline of, these are the places that are probably important to me. So the Prevalia Sewers would definitely go in there as well. We may offer some even more kind of guidance, like the first time you get to Prevalia, give you a little bit of a pop-up saying, here's some things that you should probably check out if you don't already bump into them. But was that kind of covering what you said as far as like players finding this place?
Yeah. I just, I was hoping, for that they would be directed here, exactly what you're saying, yeah. And that, some of those new player quests that are saying, hey, go here and do this for your first aspect, right? Your first codex or what have you, that they're directing them here a lot of times. Maybe not all the time, but a lot of times, just to keep them free from harm as they're learning the game, potentially. So
yeah, today I was dealing with a new player who reported 5 PKs that were hanging around Urukton Bluffs, and I thought this would be, a great opportunity to direct that player to somewhere that was a little bit more secure than even across the bridge, because we definitely have PKs that will prey on the weakest on the server. Yeah, so this will be a good opportunity to give them a chance to have a bit of safety.
Cool. Sure. And one thing I definitely need to do is update some of the moon gates, the destinations where it sends somebody somewhere, have them probably inside. If it's a sanctuary location, have them sent inside, because there are a couple places where the player being warped to that place has like a brief moment where they have to run into the location where they are not being protected. So I think that's as part of the rollout, we're definitely going to shift over, give people the opportunity to stay inside town and then not have to step outside for the sanctuary stuff.
Cool. Yeah,
and I think because this concludes the new player section, sort of what we're working on, and that a lot of that got moved to a new testing patch, which is already in development. And like Luthius said, we already accelerated that. I think for anyone tuning in, just to refer yourself to that testing patch, if you're able to, on the forum, to see everything that we've been working on. So we really a lot of effort has gone into the new player experience in recent weeks. We've been really excited about the massive influx of players that have been joining us.
Yeah.
And this has kind of lit a fire under our ass, for lack of better terms, to revisit the new player starting experience on Outlands. Over 7 years of Outlands being online, it's been really easy to think about the end game. We're always building things at the end for the players who have stuck with us through all of that time that are looking for new content, and it's been easy to overlook the new player experience. So this has really refocused us to check out what that's like for a new player. We had some great videos and recent encounters on the server that really reminded us that we need to revisit all of that, and I think we've really knocked it out of the park. So
Yeah.
if you're interested in Outlands, check that out and look for it in the coming weeks and days as we roll all that out.
I would completely agree. I mean, I literally just last night spent a good 20 minutes going over the new player, revamp, and I mean, I'm super excited for it, man. I really am. I think that Outlands in general, the biggest churn is right there of entry, right? The new players, and just trying to figure out the game and all that. But, most games hold your hand out there, and the steps that you guys are doing it's tremendous, man. It really is. I think you're going to have a lot more in-game players to fill up, to fill up the game. And then you're going to have a fire lit under your ass to make more and more content, right? So because more players. Yeah,
that's pretty constant. I don't think that's gonna change. I think just us feeling we're doing a better job of onboarding people who are brand new to UO. That's probably the biggest thing, and then just the sheer amount of effort that it takes to teach a person to play UO from scratch is probably the biggest reason we haven't ourselves tried to tackle that, and we've mostly relied on you guys in the community to do the job. Even now with this current initiative, the companions and other people in our support staff have been massively invested in just working hard on creating content and support for that. So we're pretty grateful to everyone else who's helped so far.
Cool.
Let's move on.
Yep. Okay, so this is cool. Okay, this real quick. This part right here is where my eyes got very big, and I was like, well, the next part is, but this part is where I was like, maybe I shouldn't be reading this yet. So tell us about spell chaining. This is cool.
Okay, so we're looking at adding a couple new skills in. I'm always I think everybody else is a little more open to it. I'm usually a little more reticent to add new skills into UO, but we're looking at adding some new stuff finally, since chivalry and necromancy. I guess arcane too, but yeah, so the idea of spell chaining is there's not a whole lot of ways right now to really modify spell casting, or at least make it more interesting. You kind of just you cast it, you target it, you move on to the next one. Maybe you get a mana refund or something else happens, but for the most part, there's not a lot of real thought process of what sort of order I should do things in, or what's going to happen when I cast this. You already kind of know what's going to happen for the most part. So the idea that I was looking at was a sort of a sequencer where you follow a chain of spells that they're being recommended to you, which you can customize yourself. There's 4 steps for the system. You have your initial spell, and then you have three different ranks afterwards. And each time you get a spell chain, it's going to be slightly randomized. The sequence is going to be slightly randomized for what sort of spell that it wants you to do in order, and then also what sort of bonus you get. But the idea is that for each step, you can pick from the list of damaging spells what 3 spells you want in there and 3 buffs you want in there. So the idea is that if you get a chain of the first spell is a small lead-off spell, the next spell is a smaller spell, but it also has a defensive bonus. You can choose to follow the chain, and then each step you go across, the bonuses are going to increase. And based on the way if you plan it out, you might have a chain that kind of follows a sort of synergy that you lead off with the defensive thing, you then do a damaging thing, and then you finalize with a lasting poison or a bleed or some sort of other thing that sets you up for a bit longer period. But so the idea is that there's going to be a little bit of variation to it, but you can still kind of have a little bit of expectations for it. The one caveat, or it's not the caveat, but the fact that we have the wizardry stuff where you pick your upgrades, I didn't want to give people completely random ones because if if you have your wizardry upgrades spent a certain way and you get spells that don't benefit from that, this system doesn't really give you a lot of utilage because if you're missing out on your wizardry buffs while you're casting spells, this isn't really helpful.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of ironing out what sort of exact buffs we'd have, but anything that would probably help a mage, maybe either in terms of, you can definitely have some synergies with things like disease or poison that can synergize with necromancy, things like chill or longer or debuffs if you're in a group. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with this, but the idea is that when you're doing your casting chains, you have a decision of whether you're going to keep on going along this chain casting spells to get these buffs, or if you break the chain or if you wait too long, it'll reset and give you a new randomized chain too. So.
Yeah. No, this is really cool because it's exactly what you're saying. I can come up with some kind of spell chain template, and it could be my spell chain template could be way different than the next guy's. Maybe mine focuses on bleeds and bonus damage and what have you, whereas yours focuses on chill and also burn damage, and we call it a frostfire spell chain mage.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like that's really cool. Or a tank, right? I'm thinking about we arcane mages are phenomenal for time dungeon and stuff, and like this I'm looking at damage resistance, health restored, and damage shield. Oh my god, very cool.
And
yeah, very cool.
Yeah, the actual effects aren't set in stone, but I just kind of kicked out an idea of some basic ones that make sense. I'm sure that when we actually get into development on this, there'll be a lot more fine tuning and probably new things we can come up with. But I think there's a lot of different. I think some of this kind of comes from MMOs where you have like spells and abilities that you kind of do in a chain. Like if you play WoW, if you're doing a mage, here's the first thing you do, then you do this, then you do this.
Yep.
I don't want to make it so it's hard coded, but I think having something where you can potentially follow a chain and see and modify your spell casting a bit has a bit of interest to people. So
100%, man, 100%. Variation is always fun. All right, you never know what you're gonna. It gives you something else to look at, pay attention to, and it keep you engaged. So that's cool.
So, and I'm sure this is still kind of spitballing prototyping. So I'm sure there'll be some new kind of wrinkles and things. By the time this thing goes into development fully, I'm sure there'll be some more kind of interesting elements added to it. But there definitely will. I say definitely, but pretty good chance there'll be an aspect that will kind of synergize with the spell chaining. I just call it sequencer as a kind of a TBD type name, but I think there's definitely some aspect type of elements we can add on to this to expand it further.
Save your chroma cores, boys. That's awesome. Okay, so this part is where I shut this down for myself, and I was like, I can't watch anymore or read anymore because I know this is something that, I don't know. If we search Druid in Outlands Discord, I bet it would be in the thousands. Like people probably eat this up. Especially, I'm thinking about Bear Guild. Like they role play as Druid, so I'm excited for this.
Yeah, so back when I was on the Relpor server, we did do a shape-changing thing, and I'm trying to think exactly how it went. We had it in place. It was a little bit of basically everything I did for Relpor was kind of a hodgepodge / not exactly well-balanced, but I did learn a few things from it, and one of the biggest things that's been kind of a bottleneck to us doing any sort of shape-changing that allows you to stay in combat is whether or not you on the screen see another person in this form and immediately recognize, is that a person or is that a monster? And that's one of the main reasons why the polymorph spell, we really don't want it in PvP, because if you see a bird running by, your first instinct isn't, oh, that's a player. You have to kind of process it at first. So for Druidism, the initial thought process I had was to pick from forms that pretty unique, that don't mimic what we have exactly in game already. So if you see this thing, you're like, okay, that's probably, or that's a player who's shapeshifted.
Yeah.
The other thing is that there was internally, I had a debate, internally and with staff too, I guess, debate whether or not to extend Druidism to like nature spells. And so classically from like Baldur's or D&D and other games, druidism kind of comes in the form of either being nature spells or shapeshifting. And I feel like sticking with one specific set or one specific path, which is shapeshifting, I think we can do a better job with it rather than having to kind of balance two separate play styles. So the way I went about this was focusing on the animal forms. You shapeshift for a limited amount of time, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 60. And then you take on the form, which gives you bonuses to modify your gameplay a little bit. So the most of them are melee, whatever, that are you're modifying how you're doing normal dex or combat.
Yeah.
But then you also have abilities that you can fire off on top of that. You'll still be able to do the underlying. For now, I'm focusing on wrestling. So if you use fist weapons, and you'll still have all your wrestling codex stuff, your weapon abilities, the weapon specials. But then you can also, on top of it, do abilities that are unique to each of the forms. So I think classically, you usually have a brute form. You'd have some sort of a defensive form. I always use puns or sort of weird names. I came up with Scumbug as a kind of a alternate version of the Antlion / Ankeg, and the idea is that you'd have that would be basically a giant beetle that does disease. It can still do the teleport / or dig, where you can do the AoE attack, which I think people like that a lot.
Yep.
But then each of the forms would have abilities that are kind of synergized with the style of the form, and ideally unlock a couple different play styles of playing for each one of the forms too. So like if you really want to be there's a spell purger which synergizes with mages. You can use the arcane staff still and do attacks, but then you'll have you can do like the actual purgers in game. The table ones have their their kind of their ranged spit attacks, but then also the bigger one. So you have abilities like that too. Take a look here at the list.
Dude, that's really cool because it's like you turn into said thing for a limited amount of time, and it just increases your power, and it shows like, oh, that's a druid, and again, just because you're a druid, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're templated to doing only DPS. Maybe you're templated towards being, like you said, with what is it, Scumbug, more tanky or what have you. So it's just it gives that template variation quite a bit. It doesn't pigeonhole you into only playing like.
I mean, you probably have, obviously you have to decide if you are doing a mage character. Obviously, you do the spell purger versus doing a melee character. But I think but as far as the actual other builds, I think you could probably alternate between what if you want to do pure DPS with the Gold Tusk, if you want to do more defensive with Scumbug, Slam Vivian, which right now I don't really know what actual like slamming abilities, but the idea is that you'd have aggro management. You'd be able to summon temporary frog minions, be able to do regen, a lot more management of tackling bleed and disease effects, and so kind of depending on what you're fighting, maybe pick something that's a little more apt for it. So
I like it, and so there's a druid's tome as well. So another codex, right? But we're not calling it a codex. We're calling it a tome.
Basically, everything we have is going to be a codex. I think. Yeah. I don't know what spell chaining does yet, but the two ones that coming up, definitely have them. Because for Druid's Tome, you do also get some customizations for each of the forms. The idea is that you'd have 6 upgrades for each form to kind of fine tune things a little bit more.
Yep.
Either tweaking your abilities a bit, or adding new ones, or just some might just be straight up buffs. But we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah.
I do think that there's a lot of room for us to add customization with that. Also, I will state too that the 4 forms I have right now aren't set in stone. Those are ones I kind of thought would fit the mold as far as being unique enough that you see them that they're not, you don't immediately think, oh, it's a player. There's definitely potential to switch those up. I know people kind of wanted nature forms like plants and things, or even more traditional, I guess I'd say druid forms. Although the problem there though is that the animations for plants and things is really, really jaggy. And when you do movement with a corpse or something else, it looks kind of funky. So
you could do even like customizations for more druid forms, right? With polymorph, similar to how that goes. I can tell you without going down the list of what everybody's saying in chat right now, bear is a very popular
Yeah,
one that people are saying.
No,
Bear,
no,
bear,
yeah.
bear.
Well, we had that on Relport. Actually, one of our staff members on Relport. I wasn't a fan of this happening, but I didn't really have a say in the matter. But on Relport, we had shape changing into polar bears, and one of our staff members would have four or five tamed polar bears, and then themselves would shape change into a polar bear. So you'd have 6 polar bears coming at you in PvP, and you'd have no idea which one was the player. Which sounds fun in theory, but it's anybody who had to deal with it was probably like, this is a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. We'll see on the bear stuff too. It's definitely possible. But I kind of went with things that are a little more unique, a little more non-standard. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, this is interesting, man. I'm very excited for the druid stuff. Yeah, and then I see here potentially introduce a nature aspect. So synergy and nature. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much all the like I said before, all the new skills would probably have a new aspect, and ideally I would. So with chivalry and necromancy, I kind of cheaped out and basically had the main bulk of the aspect being just buffing effective skill for that. I'll try to find a better way to get more interesting ways to alter things than just saying you have more skill. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, there'll be something that'll try to modify you a little bit and give you a little more flexibility to, or at least expand things a bit.
Very cool.
So, and then also the hotbar. The hotbar is also a work in progress. That's something I was just it takes up a lot of space, but also at the same time, you do want people to be able to jump between the different forms, and then also each form has its own abilities. So that's kind of with this sort of little tree branching style, and then also I thought the leaves were kind of fun. So you'd have the druid symbols as leaves, and each ability would cost a symbol to use them. So, but
who's that person?
I like it.
Oh, the bottom one is basically to go back into human form. Is it the zero cost one? Yeah, I grabbed the graphic from Eric's. I think it's one of Eric's time dolls he had. So it was kind of cute little graphic, and it was also smaller than the little human icon we had. So I put that there for a placeholder.
I have to have that. Like okay. I have to have that.
Well, an existing game right now is if you in Time Dungeon, there's a doll for that. So
okay, all right. Well, I guess I'll be looking for that.
Back into time.
Yep.
Good luck. Jack, you covered geomancy? Yeah,
let's move into that. I kind of scrolled down a little bit, and chat's going crazy about geomancy. This is a long-awaited thing. I think when I first started, there was like golems, and talks of golems. So this is exciting. Let's hear about geomancy.
Every pipeline we've ever done.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's survived each pipeline somehow, and until we finally stopped doing pipelines for a while. But it made a resurgence here. The big thing was that I was kind of wary of adding in new systems for followers, just because it's already difficult managing. We have 175 different teamables, probably close to 200 at this point, and just managing that's kind of difficult. But I think in this case, if you focus on 4 core ones, and the other caveat with this is that this one's based around, it's a little more skill intensive than summoning, but it's also based around the idea that they're benefiting from melee players, and they have a little bit more of a structure, or a little more of a unique structure for how you create them and how they're the costs on them. So this is just as a summary. The idea is that geomancy is a new skill that we're having. That geomancy, the skill itself, is going to be your effective skill for summoning these things. However, each of the 4 types, and these types are still kind of in flux. I just picked 4 of them that seemed like they would look like decent golem animation styles, and then also potentially could synergize a bit with the skills that I'm going to get into in a second here. But the idea is that there'll be 5-slot followers, so you don't have any other followers. They don't take mana to summon at all. You have to construct them through a construction action, which will be. I'm still debating how long it is. I'm one of the things I kind of want to get away from is we have a lot of people for the summoning stuff who just stick to having 80 skill, and they don't see much reason to go beyond it. I definitely want to make it so that people consider going to 100 or 120 for both of them. So I think probably what will happen is that your skill will affect how long your construction of them takes. So the character will be kind of like hammering away at summoning a little, the golem, and then your skill will impact how long it takes to summon it, and also after it dies, how long before you resummon it. It doesn't take mana, so that's kind of another little thing to work around, and that's kind of where the cooldown plays into effect here. But
And I would imagine these. I mean, they would follow the same commands of all follow me, etc.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. Yep, they'll effectively be another type of follower that does this. I don't think there's any real limitations on them. The graphic says summoned, and then the duration. I still haven't really finalized whether or not there's actually needs to be a duration on them. I mean, it might just be more like necromancy ones where they're permanent,
Sure.
not permanent, but they're indefinite until they die or dispelled. Not dispelled, but unsummoned.
That's fun, man. I mean, I'm looking at this right now, and it's like, I can see some that would be good for a trapper. I can see some that would be good for killing a boss. I can see some that would be, good for tanking if you've got a glass cannon. That's really cool. I like it.
Yeah. So it's kind of structured around the idea is that everything we've had for summoning has been oriented on mages.
Yeah.
There hasn't really been any sort of equivalent for a melee type character. You can definitely do taming, but I think this kind of fills a different sort of niche because each one of the golem types we're looking at either a crafting skill or a harvesting skill to be the secondary skill that caps your effectiveness with it. And
that's what was in my head was either mining or lumberjacking or whatever. I just thought that would be a really cool way to introduce that into the actual PVM.
So it utilizes some skills that right now still. I mean, we do definitely have bonuses for those skills for combat, but most people don't really take advantage of it. Yeah. Maybe just kind of as a novelty, but really there's not too many people who've tried to do full builds that can play off of them. So the hope is that we'll get some people trying out using their harvesters or crafters or even making one from scratch. I mean, I think obviously alchemy and cooking are the ones that are a lot more easier to jump into, or the forensic eval, but they're all melee oriented conception. I mean, you're probably going to do a melee build most likely with these. We'll see how it goes for that. You'll have a toolbox, which is a blessed object that's essentially your codex / activation tool. So you click on the toolbox and you can choose what sort of golem you want to summon. Based on what skills you have will show which ones are available to you. Each golem will have kind of similar to what I had before with the shape changing, where each golem type has a bunch of upgrades you can pick from to fine tune them a little bit.
Okay.
They'll probably be in general similar to what we had for summoning, as far as what you can expect for each one having their own ability. That's like a passive and an active ability baked into it. But then you can also, with the upgrades, probably either add new ones or tweak them a bit. Some other kind of notes that this system, rather than regions, because this thing reagents or regions, I have no idea how people pronounce it.
I say regions, but then it's funny because on stream I'll say reagents, but then
regs.
Regs. Yeah.
I've never come to a conclusion on what it is. Thankfully, I don't do much voice stuff, so it doesn't really kind of affect me much. But whatever you want to call them, normally, that's obviously the summoning ingredients, which isn't really applicable here. So we're coming up with something that's called gem shards. And the idea with the gem shard is that each time you summon one of these golems, you'll consume one. And to craft it, probably what will happen is you'll create a bundle of gem shards that will require one of each gem. So I think there's 9 gem types, tourmaline, citron, all the way up to diamond. And I think probably what it'll do is we'll have the crafting recipe will have all 9 gems in there. You'll need to have one of each, and then it will create a bundle of them. So it might be 5 gem shards or 10, depending on how long. I'll have to do the math to figure out what the actual gold value is per summoning. But that's kind of the concept I'm going to go with.
I love and I hate this only because it's become a meme for myself and Are You Kidding? And I look up to Black Tea for our stock of gems. It's funny because I'll show it on stream what I have, and I'll get 10, 15 DMs almost instantly of, can I buy gems? Can I buy your gems? Can I buy your gems? I'm like, no.
Long awaiting the eventual pristine lumber and immaculate wood futures that we had before.
Yeah, if you're watching the dev pipeline, you've got an inside trader inside scoop here right now. Like this stock in gems going through the roof this very second.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be. I'm not planning on it being punitive. It's not something you're gonna need a giant stockpile of them, and I think people obviously will sell them too. But I'm
Sure.
not planning on this being this. I mean, each if you think about the actual cost of summoning a normal summon, and in fact figure in the region's cost, it's not that much. And for this build to work, I'm not going to make it so the summon cost per golem is going to be that much. So if you kind of extrapolate that to gems, it shouldn't be that many gems. So I wouldn't get crazy about hoarding them. You can definitely keep them, but I wouldn't start selling off things you have to buy them.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter what you say, it's going to happen, though.
That's on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Cool. So let's talk. I mean, I guess, and then you would have creation aspect.
Yeah, I was thinking creation. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, like I said before, it's up in the air what kind of things to modify. I haven't myself locked it down, but I think there'll definitely be something for it.
So greater paragons. Okay, this is exciting.
Yeah, so this is it's funny because somebody else in their dev pipeline mentioned it too, but even Trank, one of our developers, had mentioned months ago saying we should redo the Paragon stuff. So this has been on my to-do list for absolutely forever. Well, not forever, but for a while. But yeah, the fact that we have 3 different Paragon chest types that are completely randomized, it does make sense to have the Paragon system pair up with having 3 different Paragon types. So you immediately know which Paragon chest you're going to get based on which variation the monster is.
Oh, cool.
And so I think in terms of balancing, the lesser Paragon will probably be less of a bonus than we have now. Regular might be a slight increase, and then Greater Paragon will probably be a bit of an increase compared to what we have now. Along with that, I'll probably do a refresh of the contents of Paragon Chest. Those have been pretty much standardized for, like now at least almost like 3 or 4 years now. I will definitely change up the handling. So any chests that exist prior to this patch will have the same loot in there. So people try to hoard them right now. Don't do that. It won't matter for this. So
I like it.
So yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. It does segue into some things coming up a little bit here as far as the evolved creature system. Evolved creatures is I've been trying to think of different ways we can do more long-term progression or things that players can kind of work towards or at least have in mind when they're farming.
Yeah.
And so the system, the idea is that you'll have evolved creatures that spawn probably, I haven't figured out the actual frequency yet, but probably similar to Paragons. You'll have and this could be any creature that normally would show up as Paragon. So anything that's probably a society job type creature, anything that I'll have to figure out with ship stuff, but the idea is that you have creatures that will spawn as evolved versions, and they also technically can spawn as Paragon versions too. But the crux of the system is that you have these evolved creatures that adopt a randomized buff that will either be an ability or a reaction or some sort of a modifier to it that's pretty noticeable. And the goal is that players will want to find these creatures when they come across them, kind of like Paragons, and then do research on them. So we'll have a thing called field notes, which will be a craftable, consumable, kind of like, it looks a little similar to research notes, but I still haven't worked out the full details on this. But you'll do a research action, which will probably take a few seconds. It will probably be like mugging or pilfering, where you can only do a limited number of them. Number of players can do it per creature. But if you finish out your research on the creature, you will see what the actual mutation that they have on them is. So like in this case, if you look in the images here, we have a detonation, which is one where the creature randomly detonates and does damage around itself.
Okay.
There'll probably be a pretty wide range of possible mutations. I think probably anything you can expect from the tamers, or I guess the followers system. So all of the different passive and cooldown abilities you could see in our tamed creatures probably would make sense for this. I'll probably add a bunch of new additional ones, but the idea is that these creatures are a little more dangerous, especially if you combine them with a Paragon.
Yeah.
And then the main reason people would want to find these things is that when you do research on them and complete it, you'll get a global you'll get a damage bonus against that creature that's permanent for going forward for all of your accounts. So like if you find a giant spider that's evolved, research it, you'll get and these numbers that are in the forum post are spitball. They'll definitely change, but you might get a permanent, like 0.1 0.25% damage bonus against giant spiders for everything for going forward. But then you also get a global damage bonus against all creatures. So this is kind of a long-term progression bonus that'll apply to everything you have. The more research you do on creatures, then it'll stack with the ones that are specific to each creature too. So.
That's cool. Okay, so then it's and you also put on here you can have a max of 3 people. So it's not just going to be, hey, I got an evolved creature, and then all of a sudden you got 200 Sin members showing up and getting evolved credit. You got 3. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've already been dealing that with society jobs and achievements and things. It's been kind of a long balancing process of how many or even boss kills. Like some person runs up and casts a magic arrow at it, and like, yep, I contributed, and I get credit for that now. And so we're gonna try to mitigate that, so you can't just run up and do nothing and get credit for it, or just everybody sends out a giant notification saying come in this place right now, and but.
Cool.
We'll see how. Again, this is still spitball. I'm still kind of working out the details on it, but I think conceptually, the idea that if you can become more familiar with a creature by researching it to getting bonuses against it's kind of fun, and then also just having a general reason to keep on tackling these things.
I like it. I think it's very cool. Yeah, no, I'm excited because it's like you said. I want some other progression systems outside of what we look like we're about to talk about. Red lines. I enjoy red lines, right? But I don't. Now that I'm 30 links, I want something else too. You know what I mean? Like Outlands has always had multiple avenues to chase, and this is another one that I think's really cool. So
yeah, so red line. Oh yeah. So red line up next. I guess the concern was when I rolled it out was balance. So I kept it to five buffs or 5 either buffs / modifications to the player that they can kind of work on progressively forever. And one of the obvious things that came up is that not all templates can utilize this equally. So things that are tamers, or if you're running like a gadget build with traps, or if you're a poisoner, a lot of these buffs don't exactly help you as well. So I think the idea that we're going to probably revamp the redline system to have a lot more different types of buffs available that players, things like maybe even like extending the max damage per creature cap, which mostly affects backstabbers. I think there's a lot of
dude, you just made a lot of backstabbers happy.
Again, this is still being spitballed, and
yeah,
right now people generally think that Aspect and Master Chain are the ones right now that are the best bang for their buck. But I think a lot of it comes down to what the costs are. So we may tweak some of the costs for the other ones that people right now aren't really using. If something costs 1 or 2 points, maybe it might make sense to do it rather than doing going 5 for a Master Chain or something. So,
sure.
But yeah, I'm going to give it a pretty good review, finding all the different things we can add in that I feel pretty comfortable with, not having a major balance problem, while at least extending some people's different build, giving people with certain builds a lot more progression options that normally right now aren't available.
Sure. There's a huge time investment in Redline, so I mean. I think the reward it can be good, and it sounds like you've got some good ideas, and I think it's fitting for sure.
So, yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. The biggest thing is probably for me is redoing the Gump / menu to have support a whole bunch of different pages or multiple pages worth of bonuses. So I gotta figure that out, but so that'll get tackled. And back to Owyn now.
Yeah. Next part is landmass expansion. As Outlands grows, so does the the demand for houses, and not so much the supply. So
to be fair, we have like the total number of server is nuts right now. Actually,
the never-ending demand for housing.
Yeah.
Right now we have over 7,500 houses and 5,000 in-rooms rented. So there is a constant demand to make more space.
Say that number again?
7,500 houses and over 5,000 in-rooms. It's a big. There's a lot of in-rooms hanging out over there, and a lot of those people want a house. So I constantly build. If you scroll down a little bit more, you'll be able to see where this landmass fits into the map, or the current plan for it. This is the largest body of land that I've worked on. It's
Wow.
larger than both the previous expansions, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of room for housing, and there's a lot of points of interest and new cities, areas to explore. Ideally PVM zones, and also some areas that are going to remain without houses for people to explore. I think a lot of people really enjoyed Wildlands when it was house free. There was room to roam and room to play and room to encounter other players without the interference of houses. And the goal for these for this landmass moving forward is that we maintain some areas for people to simply play in. Anyway, my goal with this.
Can I chime in a second?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so before people start freaking out about this, that map image with the new landmass, that is not the full extent of the ocean. The ocean in the actual map extends way beyond that down below. So that image doesn't show the full ocean. We're not shrinking the ocean to about half or less than what it was before.
I'm going to drain the ocean. Actually, everything you see here that's blue, everything you see that's blue is going to become brown. It's going to be mudlands. It's going to be all dirt. There's not going to be... The ocean's actually... We're retiring the ocean.
Yeah, but that image is basically a truncated image. There's a lot of blue below it. So
that's a joke.
Okay. I've never seen my chat go so fast in my life.
There is more. We're going to call it the Brosen patch, and I'm just kidding. But yeah, that image is cropped, so there is more blue down below, and it is larger than that. And we're working on some map stuff behind the scenes that will allow us to either expand the whole map to the left and to the top, which will give us more ocean space, or move our dungeon map to its own faucet, so we can expand the ocean, further to the right.
Very cool.
Or add more room down below. So there's more space to play with. But
yeah, and to your point, man, of one of the beauties of Wildlands is, there's a couple POIs that I personally like to farm in, and I don't see houses in them. They're just beautiful areas that I can farm, and I feel much more immersed and engaged in that point of interest, right? And killing those monsters rather than seeing somebody's, big house, right? Which the houses are great, good job. But, so, the idea of you continuing that in Wildlands and mixing those, is good. So. Cool.
Yeah, it's a fine line to dance, for sure, to be able to provide space for people to play in and space for players to live. One of the main reasons why the map exists is for people to have houses, and we just have so many players that want a house. So it's my goal to get as many people housed as possible, in addition to creating, unique biomes and visual experiences that people have never seen before in the game, and give Luthius room to play to add unique monster encounters, or for the seers to add new quests to, or for players to enact whatever role-playing encounters that they want to imagine. Give them space for all of that.
I like that you're not just selling out and making a giant green flat landmass of, and saying, all right, guys, good luck, or just pre-placing houses. And
it would be a lot easier, for sure.
Of
this
course
stuff takes forever. It's a lot of clicking. Luckily, the team has grown. I'm not the only one working on this now. We have a few other mappers that are contributing, and they're making some really beautiful things happen. Awesome. Some of one of the cities, one of our players, Canoe, built it, and it's just looking fantastic.
So a new city,
Valorian, and one of the two new cities. Yeah, we have Valorian. We have another builder as well. There's a large team. Well, not large, but there's a few more people than just me working on it now. So it makes things go a little bit faster.
Very cool. Speaking of new places to explore, tell us about Tidal Tomb Dungeon.
We have a lot of new dungeon content that's ready to roll, and it's just a matter of populating it and getting it out to players. And Tidal Tomb was one of the initial things that we had pitched, or that I had pitched into Wildlands. And the entrance for Tidal Tomb is in the Wildlands expansion area, and it is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in Ultima Online, and I'm really excited for everyone to get a chance to explore it.
Dude, you're not joking. Wow. This is so cool. It's funny because underwater, this gives underwater vibes without, the whole swimming through stuff. Underwater games. Like from NES. Remember how much we hated those levels? This is
Right.
one that I think is very cool.
We're not sure exactly how it's going to pan out in terms of mechanics yet. Some of the
Okay.
lower level areas might have some sort of oxygen component or the requirement to stay, with air so you can continue through certain areas. But we'll
Wow.
see. We'll see how that all works out.
Yeah, I've been kind of spitballing. The thing I want to do with it for it is I don't want it to be punitive. I don't want it to be something where like players feel constantly that they have to like basically hover over a spot, but something that they have to kind of keep in their mind a little bit where like maybe every few minutes they'll say, okay, I should probably just double check this, or
Yeah.
I mean, probably, but I think the spitball idea we had is that you'll have air pockets that you can basically collect an air bubble and keep that in your backpack, and then they'll give you a little bit of a sort of a buffer zone for it. I mean, and the thing is, you won't just suddenly drown or something. You'll probably take damage very very slowly, and then maybe it ramps up, and
Yeah.
something where it won't catch you off guard. But it'll be something that you just have in your mind a little bit about the mechanics. And also, I think the other thing I need to work on is trying to figure out. So for the levels 2 and 3, the way that the way that they were designed is that you actually have like bubbles and like you're underwater. So I kind of need to figure out how to do movements for monsters and players that make it feel like you're underwater. And
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure as far as having, because with Palma Dungeon we had areas where you splash when you walk around, which is kind of fun.
Mhm.
So something kind of similar to that with either waves or little sort of, I mean, air bubbles when you move around. I don't know if any of you guys have played Clair Obscure Expedition 33 or not, but there's a level or a section called Flying Waters where you're basically in a area that looks underwater, but you're not quite underwater. And so I think maybe something similar to that might be a angle we look at for this.
That's cool. As long as you don't make it feel like I'm on ice skates.
Yeah.
That's that is the one part and this is just me personally speaking, right? But that is the one part of underwater that I've disliked in previous games. Is that where it feels like you're on ice skates. But the air pocket idea is phenomenal. Of course, what you've done with Palma and things like that, that's cool. No, I'm extremely excited about this. I'm always a fan for, new, like, hey, we got to watch this when we go to this dungeon. Like that's very cool, giving a dungeon a unique attribute to it, right? So that's cool, man. And like you said, beautiful, dude. Beautiful.
We'll definitely have an opportunity to give full credits when the dungeon releases. This will be a big release for us, but DRC 1K did build this dungeon for us. Did an exceptional job. Eric has worked on a bunch of new monster models and animations that are custom for Outlands, and Belial did a bunch of the bubble animations, and Battle Axe Bill did a ton of this new artwork that you see, like the seaweed graphics and a bunch of the other things that really brought it to life. So total amazing Outlands teamwork here. I had very little to do with, so won't take any credit for this one.
That's great. Okay, here's one. I'm glad I got an Inferno link just recently, and I almost recrafted it, but seeing this, I'm glad I did not. So tell me about the Inferno redesign and new levels.
Inferno's always been one of those dungeons that didn't fit into the level 1, 2, 3 mold that we have played with all of the other dungeons. So one of the main ideas that we're implementing here is that we're splitting level 2 into level 2 and level 3. So that will let us implement sort of the standard mechanics that we have for the regular level split. So initially this started as a level 4 build out. DRC1K built this for us, and he did such a great job that it immediately made the original Inferno dungeon that I built look quite poor in comparison. So I suggested, maybe you should go back and revisit some of the work that I did initially and build this out a little nicer. And that kind of spurred us on to use this opportunity to break level 2 into something that was more standard, meaning level 2 and a level 3. So this is this is in the works. We're not actually done level 2 and 3 yet. Obviously, the foundation is there, but we need to spend some more time making it look like the new level 4, which is a really spectacular build that DRC did.
Yeah. DRC is yeah, okay.
Yeah, DRC 1K. He used to play on Outlands a while ago. He went by the name Seed, I think. He was in anyway, a long-time Outlands player who's now contributed to our building.
Sure, cool. OS 4. So, I still call OS 3 4. It's just what it is, man. I don't know.
That's like one of the original Outlands memes now, Ossuary 4. It's been around for a while. But this is an actual Ossuary 4, which is another amazing build-out. We'll add more challenge, sort of follow in the footsteps of what we've done with Aegis Keep 4, Mausoleum 4, adding more challenge to players. We'll have a unique drop, just like the other dungeons do. Okay. Probably a quest to open and reveal it. Maybe something like, Treasures of Ossuary or something along those lines. Those quests, the contribution quests and the crafting quests have been really great for the server. It's something that we look forward to doing and players look forward to doing. So yeah, releasing new dungeon levels is definitely an exciting time on Outlands.
I really like, the necklaces for said dungeons. I think wearables that drop randomly in said dungeon that's a huge motivator. I mean, take that for what you will and expand upon that if you decide to, but I just think that those wearables that drop in the hard parts of the dungeon is something that a lot of people would probably, definitely push for. I know I would if there was like a kilt or something that dropped in OS4.
I can tell you haven't read down the patch notes.
I haven't. There we go.
There's more. There's more. Good idea.
Wait, there's
sounds great.
There we go. That's great. All right. Well, let me move on to Ultima 4. Okay. Oh wow. Wow. This looks like a beautiful knights, like a castle kingdom. This is cool. Okay.
Same story.
Yeah.
We just have a lot of these waiting in the wings, ready to roll out. So it's a nice thing for us to work on and to present to players in between our regularly scheduled events. I think
at this point, the bottleneck is also probably me because we have a bunch of these level 4s ready to go that I need to build creatures for and set up stuff for. So I'm probably at this point what's keeping some of these from going out, but we're definitely going to accelerate this pretty soon here.
We need to clone Luthius, is what we're saying.
Yeah, that's a thing. Let's do it. Oh boy, I like Shadowspire. Okay, this is beautiful.
All right, so I was talking to Silvio, who's the original author of Shadowspire. He built this for our initial expansion. It was one of the first dungeons that we added to our core set. And I suggested that Silvio just build a level 4, add another level for us. And he got building and it became, he built an attic and a new mini boss room and a new boss room. And then he built the crypts and then he built another, massive sort of final boss area. And he just kept going. And he's one of the most...
He
absolutely, yeah, he Eric'd me. He is one of the most talented builders that I've ever encountered in Ultima Online, and it's an honor to have him contribute anything to Outlands. So I didn't want to hold him back, and he went for it. He's just one of the most tasteful builders that I've ever seen. One of the best. So we're looking forward to this. It will probably result in Shadowspire being closed for a couple of weeks while we implement it, because there's a bunch of transition changes, and so it'll be one of those sort of closed for refurbishment moments while we let Luthius spawn it. We adjust the teleporters, we do the map patch, we get everything rolling. It's a big orchestration to get all of this online.
Please stick a very tacky closed for renovation sign right in the front, like yellow and black. Just like
we'll get some sawhorses set up in front or some caution tape. Like a police line, do not cross. Block all the runes, everything.
The Horseshoe Bay event invasion. We could probably do something similar to that for this thing. I bet. I mean,
very cool.
Because we essentially renovated that whole city. And then did it, kind of took it down, sort of, and then brought it back up again with an event. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that need to change for this dungeon to accommodate these changes.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces here. So we'll see how we can coordinate it. That was, Horseshoe Bay wasn't exactly Luthius's favorite experience to reconfigure everything, and this will be similar. So we'll see how we go.
So Outpost is, I'm going to say probably 80% of people's Moongate destination, right? When they leave a dungeon,
Right.
just because it's close. So apparently there's
Yeah.
an Outpost expansion.
Yeah, Outpost was one of the first cities that I built, and I think that it looks that way in terms of how, my skills have evolved as a map maker and how our tile, the available tiles and art that we have has evolved as well. And I was playing with the idea of expanding areas of the map that don't have dockmasters or houses nearby where we're not interrupting players' real estate value. And that south side of Outpost is one of those areas that was sort of free to expand upon. So based on the excitement of players running around Wildlands without any houses, I thought I would build something here that also didn't have any houses. So the goal for this expansion was to revitalize the city, make it look more modern and up to date compared to or in line with the rest of the server map, and add new areas for players to explore. So the goal for this is just to add new PVM areas, new map areas like treasure maps or resource maps, add some points of interest, different unique spawns for people to explore. One other idea, whether it comes to fruition or not, is to add another wilderness boss location so that we don't funnel everyone to the Chaos Shrine. Whether that happens or not is still up for discussion. As as Luthius says, that's being spitballed. So we'll see how that all works out. But this is done, and it was done sort of around the winter time. But now it feels a bit weird to release a winter expansion map in the middle of the summer. So maybe this will be something that we aim for in the winter, or we'll say it's like an Australian expansion. Southern Hemisphere is getting their winter map midsummer.
There it is.
Anyway, this is waiting on the wings. If you scroll around the world mapping game, you can kind of get a gist of what this looks like. But it's a beautiful new area, very difficult to navigate in typical Owyn fashion. Lots of trees. There'll also be a raffle house included, so there will be one special house here that people will be able to live at.
One tile pathways.
Yeah, not nearly enough though. I think I should go back and add some more of those, just so I get more hate mail.
Is this picture of the raffle house or no?
It's not. No, that's
okay.
That'll be some sort of haunted keep.
Yeah,
south of Outpost.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so on the topic of clothing, it looks like faction reward clothing, and it's specific to said faction. Okay, tell us about that.
Sort of.
Yeah, I didn't think we really had enough clothing options on Outlands. It was time to really flesh that out. It's not like we're releasing 10 or 15 new pieces of clothing every other month.
Sure.
Anyway, I had the idea when we were developing factions, we had the idea of building faction uniforms, garbs for each faction. And I reached out to Valorian, one of our Gump artists, and she drew all of these. And this was almost before we even had the animation pipeline for clothing that Hayes had built out. And inevitably, once we get a taste of that, we decided that we needed to have new animations for each of these items. There's 10 to 11 different pieces of clothing for each of these sets. They make up the entire set. So this is something that Hayes has been chipping away at for years now. And he finished it a few weeks ago. And we are excited to get this released for an update to the faction reward system.
Wow. These.
Yeah. There's been a long-going. I say debates. I've been pretty. Maybe debate isn't the correct term, but there's been arguing and discussion over how these should be implemented. As far as are they bound per person? Are they stuck to the faction? What are the restrictions on this? And I think ultimately, just releasing them and let players doing what they want with them, I think is probably the most fair, not fair, but at least the most has the best long-term potential for progression for people, things for them to constantly work on for factions to unlock, and if they want to sell them or do whatever else they want with them, or even just mixing and matching them for fun.
Okay.
So I think having the fun element of being able to do what you want with them overrides any sort of benefit gained from restrictions on them. As far as also people getting stuck in, if you have a bunch of Cambria faction clothing and you're now in Andaria, that kind of sucks. You're like, I can't use this anymore, or So there's a lot of reasons why I didn't do the restrictions on it.
I agree.
Yeah, so we're not locking these into a faction. The idea is that they're available with faction silver, and then factioners can sell them or use them as they see fit. And the layering system that they'll use will be, like what we have as standard armored layers, like helms or gloves right now, which are blessed, will remain that way. Like the Andaria helm will be a helm that functions as a helm. But the other items will be clothing items, or they'll sit on top of existing armor layers. So they're not adding any benefit. It's purely cosmetic. They're dyeable, and players will be able to use them as they see fit. If you want to rep, Prevalia gear, and you're not even a factioner, that's fine. The way we built the faction system, unfortunately, players don't really have much loyalty to the faction that they're in, and they jump around fairly frequently. We do see a bit of rivalry as it stands now. Players are holding their ground and choosing their faction, but that isn't necessarily the goal here. So this is just a massive reward update for factioners.
I think that's very cool. For me, it would be like, well, I want to sit in Andaria. I mean, I like Andarias quite a bit, right? And I just want to sit in Andaria and farm it myself. Sure, I could buy it, right? Or, maybe, something that's cool that I've always liked about Outlands is that you can become decently wealthy just by PvPing, right? Getting the rewards and selling them. You don't have to be a PVMer. You can come to Outlands and say, I am just a PvPer. I have no interest in PVMing, but I want a big house. And, most of the time you have to PVM a whole bunch because PvP is most of the time costly, unless you're just PKing people's loadouts nonstop, right? And this is an avenue to making a decent amount of change pretty quick. So, and these are beautiful. I mean, that's the bottom line.
You can still wear them. You don't have to sell them. But I know we're kind of going a lot with the whole selling off and trading them. But
sure, No, these are beautiful, man. I'm, these shields. I mean, if you know me, I like playing a mage, but this makes me want to play a Dexter with a shield. Screw my axe. I want a shield. ASAP.
So the shield thing we're still kind of working on. I mean, that the idea is that we can't really give people the blessed shield because that's a giant amount of protection you'd have constantly. So we're probably doing either a transmogrification system or what I call them I don't really like that word it feels a little kind of alien for this game. So I just call them shield cover. Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of games that have. I think that conceptually the idea is that you'd basically buy the item and then whatever shield you actually equip will adopt the visual style of it, and then it'll go away when you take it off. So kind of like what we have with the aspects, where you can't really take off an aspect item and give it to somebody else to have aspect on it. So the idea is that you can actually still use a shield and have the properties as a shield or the material quality of the shield, but then have the faction visual on it. So we'll probably play around with it a little bit, but that's what we're leaning towards for now.
I like it. And then of course you have faction mounts, all that good stuff.
Hayes had built out these checkered comparisons for King's Fair a while ago, and we decided that mount gear would never be something that we'd have on the Prevailing Merchant, and it should just remain a faction reward. So these are being added there. We've got a checkered comparison and a plume champron that players can dress their horses in. Maybe llamas later. We'll see how productive we can be to get those onto other mounts. And then Hayes also drew all of these faction reward decorations. So things like the mount gear stands and the flags,
shields, banners, is really cool,
etc.
They're all really cool. Actually, so's Terran. All of them. This is great. So I'm sure you've seen it, obviously, but in like the House Deco fashion channel, you see a lot of homemade jousting sets, right? Especially in guild houses. This is going to be phenomenal for that.
Yeah, you'll be able to rep the city that you like the most, or the faction that you play for, or whatever. You can make your own jousting tournament arena if you wanted to.
Cool.
So yeah, just a nice expansion there. And then more down below, we'd worked on these arena. The arena needs a reward update. It's been a while since they got anything new, and the arena community has been, small but dedicated to dueling for a long time. And I was listening to a few player requests for different things, like a very blingy necklace or, a blingy bracelet, some kind of death mask. Another person suggested that we do bite marks or scars. These sorts of items will be available through the arena system, but will also be tradable. So if duelers want to, win tournaments and gain those points, they'll have them in a deed form that they'll be able to give to other players to unlock. So these will be like tattoos. Instead of having something on your tattoo layer, you'll be able to have, like a bite mark on your shoulder or on your chest or on your face or your legs, right leg, left leg, etc. It works the same way as tattoos. It sits on the tattoo layer. They also take the skin hue that you're working with. So if you have, you're an orc with green skin, then that red bite mark will stand out still on top of your green skin. They're essentially partial hue, to use a UO term.
These are very cool, and I have a feeling that arenas are going to become more popular.
There are a few other arena rewards that we're talking about, like doing arena hued, lanterns or torches, or just fleshing out the arena system to sort of match on par with the other reward systems that we have in place already.
Look at that watch, dude. People like collect Rolexes and different brands of watches. This right here is going to set people off. That's cool.
Yeah. Something to show off. If you're a champion, then you can rock that.
Yeah. Elite Island PvP Battleground.
Yeah, I just threw this in. It was something that we've been talking about a lot in the PvP channel. PvPers are always looking for some way to have some sort of balanced, even team match. People have long asked for, rifts to be on a stone that they can trigger whenever they want, or to do guild-style town struggles where they can have some sort of rule-based system that can't be interrupted or interfered with by other players. So the idea for Elite Island came from the PvP community to build something that has a very basic, no rewards, no leaderboards, just simple, kill-based scoring in a set amount of time in a simple arena with no, monster interference, no other player interference, and also implementing all of the no scripting mechanics that we've just recently added to the client, or that came out with the PvP patch, and working with the same no sticky bar mechanic that we had played with earlier that didn't flesh out completely. So completing that, implementing that, and giving PvPers that framework to battle against each other as they like. So hopefully that'll give them what they're looking for on Elite Island.
So I have about 3/4 of clothing showing on my stream right now, and they can see EON clothing. And chat's going wild. Serge says,
"Oh, this is you predicting the future."
Yeah.
We know that people really liked the special drops each dungeon, and I think it would be really cool to have people directed to dungeons to farm for certain items. Like unique drops per dungeon is the goal here. Yeah. So I had Valorian, our amazing Gump artist, draw concepts for each dungeon. Unique clothing that will be extremely rare that players can hunt for and build out their dungeon clothing drops. So this is just 5 of 12 or 13 dungeons that we have now on display here. I think that it goes Darkmire, Crawlhive, Inferno, Tidal Tomb, and Nucero in this image. And these aren't just like skins, they're each individual items. So something like 5 to 6 items per dungeon. They'll all have, obviously inventory sprites and custom animations that you can hunt for in each dungeon.
I think possibly, so we have had some complaints that the level 4 dungeons, obviously the difficulty went up on them a lot. I think it's definitely possible we could make these clothing drops a little bit higher chance for the levels, just to kind of steer people towards the areas of dungeons that aren't really being farmed. That's obviously up for debate too, but yeah, I think we can definitely play around with the whole concept of the clothing drops and steering people towards different spots.
Yeah, no, that's huge, man. I'm looking at this Inferno one, and I'm like, how cool would that be to be flame striking wearing that? And I look at the Crawlhive one, and oh my god, I'm thinking about the Druids, previously. That's so fitting. All of it is props, dude. Yeah, that's cool. And like you said,
this is another one of those instances where it's going to take years to get these animations done. It takes a long time. We have one guy who works his ass off to get all these animations done, and he's working on seasonal releases plus the faction stuff plus, and doesn't just do clothing animations. He also does everything else art wise. So he'll start ticking away at these, and hopefully we'll have something to release within a year or two. We'll see how it goes, but this is definitely a long-term goal to get these released.
Very cool. Very cool. Town plants. Okay.
So this one I just kind of spitballed. I mean, this is basically like 5 days ago. This is something that's pretty relatively new. And I was just thinking that we obviously have the dungeon plants, which are kind of, people enjoy those, and it might make sense to have a PvP sort of one where if players doing PvP events or factions or something could get town seeds. So each town would have its own plant that's kind of themed a little bit around the town theme, coloration, whatever. So yeah, I think these would be something that would probably either be battle accommodations or some other fashion related to doing a PvP event, which takes place in towns usually. So
yeah, I chucked this concept over to Battle Axe Bill. I did a bit of brainstorming for what each town I think would be represented. Each real country in the world and most towns have sort of like a national flower or an official flower or tree or bush or whatever it might be. So I went with that concept for each city that we have on Outlands. So like the Prevailing White Rose, the Anchor's Rest Sea Lavender, the Andarian Lily of the Valley, staying in that general vein. And the idea for these was that they were based more on real world plants instead of being such, fantasy based plants that we keep for dungeons. So that's the distinction here, is that these are more, based on reality than just being something that's made up for the dungeons.
I like it. You can also kind of role play your character saying that I am from Prevelia. I grew up on the streets of Prevelia, and so you have Prevelian flowers in your house.
Yeah, you have a Prevelian flower, and then you have Prevelian armor and Prevelian faction reward banners and everything else. You could really, deck out with your fealty however you like.
And then we'll get the faction undergarments pretty soon too.
Yeah, we'll have.
I'm kidding about that. I was
Terran thongs.
That's great. Oh, wow. We've got
flower breeding is something that I've had in the back of my mind since long before Outlands existed. I think I've literally had these flowers in Green Acres sitting in these color spectrums since I even met Luthius and we talked about Outlands being a thing. I'd always loved the official plant breeding system. Yeah. And it's sort of where it was the starting point for what mount breeding became, where you can take basic hues or light hues and breed your mounts together and come up with rarer, more intense hued mounts. And that's similar to what we would attempt to do with these plants. So we had these partial hue plant models made, and there are more down below if you scroll a bit. And the goal here would be that players can breed or mate, whatever plants do, mate with each other, pollinate with each other.
They spit on each other and say, all right, you're pregnant now.
Yeah, exactly. So plants will generate seeds or pollen, and players can mix them together in bowls, and they have a chance to grow a rare plant. So this is another long-term idea, but I think that our plant system has a lot of room for growth. Typically right now people are just looking for you grow a plant, you try not to have any disease, you take care of it, you arrange some lights, you water it every once in a while. But I think this would add a bit more of an interactive element.
Agreed.
That players can spend more time with their plants.
And everybody likes the vibrant colors, so that's cool.
Yeah, and they're tasteful, they're not too neon, the whole plant isn't colored, it's not too ugly. So trying to keep it just something that players can work towards long term to grow more unique plants.
Beautiful. I made a mistake and scrolled down to Master Bone Armor, and oh my god, dude.
It's not Monster Bone. So that was okay. So this one's another one that Owen and I have been on different sides of the coin on how this should be implemented or what we should do. But he showed me these images, and my thought process is that we can probably we agree that this is a set of armor and weapons players could have that comes from a craftable that has a rare or hard to get ingredient to make them. We're still kind of workshopping how those ingredients come about. But my thought process is that this would maybe be something that's a bit above Averite or Averhide in terms of material quality, and it'd be something kind of fun to save up and maybe use at an event or use at some sort of a limited occasion. This is the goal for this stuff is not to replace everyone's gear with every single person going after this being their new gear, but some kind of a fun thing that they would pull out occasionally and use. So, but
this is an idea that Serge, I have to shout out Serge. He's been harassing me in DMs this entire time. Sent to me, wanted something that he would have to hunt for because he really liked dragon armor in the original game. So I had pitched this a bit differently than it landed on this pipeline, but I had always really loved the dragon bone armor from Skyrim. Yeah. And that's definitely what this is heavily inspired by. So I shot those references over to one of our Gump artists, and she built out this in a UO style and did a set of weapons as well. So wherever this lands, ultimately it will be something that players are hunting for instead of building, from a harvest system. It will be something that players are hunting for.
Serge, you smart as hell.
Serge, you're annoying as hell.
Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, it's funny because I keeping my eye on chat a little bit, and people are like, straight out of Skyrim, so
yeah, definitely. I'm not trying
cool.
to hide that. I won't take credit for this being my own original idea, or definitely heavily referencing something here. But porting that.
I'll say I played with there are a bunch of Dragonbone mods for Skyrim that gives you all the different weapons in. So this is something that we definitely has been done before, but I think it'd be fun to have our version of it.
I like it. Wow, that bow was really cool. It's definitely taking me back. Cool, very cool.
We're getting down to the last little bit here.
This one's a bit unwieldy. I've been threatening for a while in chat that I've been working on a bunch of different kind of weird things that haven't really been done in the game before. And I actually have had to pivot a few times with my original plan for things. My original plan was to basically create a full in-game kind of an analogy of Hearthstone, or Magic the Gathering, if kind of a collectible card game type of thing. And I got about halfway through it, and I realized how unwieldy it is to manage that through UO, which I know makes some people kind of sad, but I just don't think that part really is realistic. However, I do think we have opportunity to do something that's kind of a combination of card collecting, a bit of Pokemon-style battles, kind of combines a handful of different game types together into a sort of a weird UO soup. And so Monster Rumble is a card builder / battler where players will play the normal game and they will get card packs that appear as loot, and they'll also get these things called monster meals, which are basically kind of tokens to use the systems. Kind of similar to what we already have for pit trials with the supply items. But the idea is that players will build up collections of cards, and they'll have to put together a little team of monsters. And the monsters are all organized into different ranks. So at level 1 ranks, you'll see things like skeletons and zombies and harpies. And then as you go up into the different ranks, the monster cards that are there will be different types. And ultimately what you do is you collect these cards, and then you will start a battle where you have 3 different lanes. And in each lane, one of your creature cards that you have 3 cards selected. Technically, each card can have multiple creatures. You might have a pack of 2 skeletons or a pack of 3 slimes or something. But each lane will be one of your cards facing off against another monster from a higher rank. And your goal is to basically to win the match with the amount of health that you have remaining for your lanes combines into a total score. So the actual game itself is a little bit of you have actions that you can swap your monster lanes. So if you have a harpy fighting against something that you think, oh yeah, this would probably be better fighting this thing. Oh, sorry, I'll take a step back. All of the monsters that you have use the exact stats and abilities and effects and things that they would do in game normally. So if you have a harpy, the harpy's going to have the same stats as it would in game. If you fight a Terrathon drone, it's going to do its same rock attack. That's AoE. All the different creatures that you fight in game, about half of them probably are in the system somewhere. So part of the system is that players farming in the game will have some knowledge of, okay, this monster does this. This monster is good against this. I need to avoid this type of monster. If I'm using 2 creatures in one lane, I need to avoid AOE monsters. And yeah, so then that's part of the element of this game. The other element is that you have these actions you use where you can swap lanes, you can pacify monsters, you can heal, you can do evolve, which is a callback to that the field studies evolve system where you basically give your creature a randomized buff or ability or something, or even turn them into a paragon for a bit of time. So yeah, this is kind of a weird hodgepodge system because you're kind of combining card battle or card collection. You're combining Pokemon style monster battles. You are using knowledge of monsters in game to try to figure out which monster would be the best one to essentially provoking onto another monster. And then, yeah, it's kind of managing actions that kind of control the battle. So, structurally, there are 45 ranks of.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time going through and figuring out monsters to which ones fit into each rank based on the difficulty value of them, based on their strengths. And each rank has 10 creatures in them. So when you're on rank 1. You'll be getting these little card packs where you open them up and you'll see which monsters are in there and you pick them. When you get to so for each team you have to set a team of 3 monsters. When you do a rank challenge where you fight enemy monsters, you can pick monsters that are at your current rank or below. So if you're at rank 2, you can use monsters that are rank 1 or rank 2 from your collection. When you go up the next rank, you have to use the ones at your level or below. So there's a bit of a deck builder as far as which creatures you're going to advance and upgrade, and when you get to new level, you have to figure out new ones you're going to do things against. But yeah, so it's 45 ranks to go up, and as you also then there's so yeah, sorry, I'll take a step back. There's 45 ranks to go through, and as you do each rank, you'll get reward points that you can spend on stuff. Those are still being kind of fleshed out. I think that one thing we already have right now is monster masks, which will be both in the paper doll, kind of like what we have for the red line trophies. And so, have like a monster lizard man icon in there, but then also equipable ones. So, like we have the Radman mask from Time Dungeon. We already have Hayes already built up a lizard man mask, so that'll be one of the kind of the purchasable equipment from your rewards points. But yeah, so I'm aiming to have 4 separate ladders, which each ladder has the 45 ranks in them. But each time you go up a different ladder, it's more difficult. They'll have there'll be maybe some penalties to how often you can do actions. Monsters will be stronger, and I'm still kind of workshopping how some of this works. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of room here to work with as far as translating your monster knowledge of the game, fighting things in game, learning about them, and then applying it to this little Pokemon style battler. And I'm hoping people enjoy it. We'll see. This is obviously
this is amazing. So like the cards, the cards, right, that we have right now, they're cool. Okay, but something that's always been asked is like, hey, it'd be cool if there was, a way to kind of make them interactive or what have you. And so this is really neat. I mean, this gives you another motivation. If Redline isn't your thing, right? Or farming links isn't your thing, this gives you a motivation to farm, and get these through normal gameplay, right? And then I guess, are you able to trade these by chance, or
no? So that was yeah. So I debated whether or not. Well, 2 things. One is whether or not you can actually purchase cards. I was thinking maybe like you'd be able to buy 1 card pack per rank, and then also trade them. I went through a couple different iterations of how we want to do this, but I think the way I have it right now is everything right now is completely bound to you, and it's essentially a progression system. So yeah, right now there's no trading. There's no way you can just buy into the system and just buy cards from somebody else. You basically have to do the system. So I think that gives you this system a bit more legs, even though I know some people would probably want to buy into it, but I don't think that's really
sure.
I think it's more important for players to actually do the system than just try to buy out the system.
You're right. Okay, this is very cool, man. Yeah, I'm smitten like kitten mittens, brother. This is super cool. Like, I can't imagine, I'm down there farming and all of a sudden I get a card and I'm like, oh my God, I just got a sunworm.
Well, the
Like,
thing is,
that's so cool.
well, you'll get the card pack, and then there's actually
Yeah.
in the post here. There's a little picture of a Gump or a menu where you see 4 cards and you have to pick from one of them. So it's kind of like the any game where you open up
Yeah.
a loot pack and pick something, or and so the way it works is that you can get cards multiple times, and if you get the same card multiple times, it actually increases the upgrade level of it, so it becomes a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
I'm workshopping the mechanics on it, but the idea is that you can, if you get stuck on a challenge, maybe you keep working on. I'm gonna keep on raising my creatures up to the point where I can beat that challenge. Like if I get stuck on something. So
Very cool, man.
yeah. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of a ding moment where you open the pack and I was hoping for that card, so I'll pick that one because I'm already working on like skeletons, or I'm working on liches or something.
Yeah. I'm into it, dude. I'm into it. Okay, so I mean, dude, guys, this is huge. I mean, we're getting new aspects, we're getting new skills, new gameplay loops, you know, druid form. I mean, shoot, dude, master bone armor, the skills, the geomancy that potentially ties in with harvesting, which I think is very cool. I mean, I can go on about so much of this, but I'll, to save time, I won't rant too much. But I mean, there's the greater paragons idea and the evolved stuff. There's just so much here. I mean, landmass is huge. It's crazy to hear 7,500 houses and 5,000 in rooms, or maybe I got it backwards, but either way,
You're good.
yeah, it's crazy, man. So this is legitimately an expansion, is that right?
I think that's the big question right now. I see it in your chat. A lot of people asking what the time frame is like for all of this. And I said to Luthius earlier, whether it was yesterday or this morning or whatever, that we need to take a second and look at all of this stuff and see what we plug into where. What we're holding back to make a proper expansion, or if we're doing another expansion, or what we just sort of trickle out and release. A lot of this.
You would never do an expansion again, too. So
Yeah, I said I'd never do another expansion, but here we are. So we're going to take a look at all of this internally. A lot of this is already built out, though. You know what? You're seeing prototypes, but a lot of this is coded already. Luthius is playing Monster Rumble all by himself on the test shard. Well, you guys aren't allowed, but he is. So it's not as far away from being fully released as
Luthius,
it looks.
let's do a collab, man. I want to play some Monster Rebel. Let me make a video.
we really wanted to be able to release something that we would be able to actually deliver on. And a lot of this is, it's 90% done or more, other than the bits where we've said it's not. It's really just a matter of investing development time into and scheduling things to release in a way that makes sense. So it's coming soon. Yeah. Coming soon, TM, typical Outlands, but it's coming.
I love it.
The other thing to keep in mind is that we do definitely pivot on stuff too if we find a need pops up. I mean, like the character creation stuff, we've been planning on doing. I mean, actually, the quest system I've been working on for months, and I'd made plans to do a new player type of quest at some point, but then we after the Lazy Peon video, we were kind of motivated to really dive into it. So there's definitely things that we'll probably add. Like big ticket things we will add into things. So this isn't really the total list of everything that's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year, but I think it's at least good preview of things that you can definitely expect to have.
I like it. Well, any final points? I mean, you guys kind of set a timeline. You've talked a little bit about everything. I mean, any other final points?
Yes. I have moved the forum post already. So that's in the active development pipeline forum now, which is available for everyone to view. So if you miss any of the stream, you can head over to the forums and read through it at your own speed or catch up with anything there. We just wrapped up Mid-Sea. We are heading into Hot Barbarian Summer. That's next. Then we go into King's Fair. et cetera, et cetera. We've got events lined up. It's event season all the way through to the end of the year. So we've got a ton of stuff going. New player experiences on the test server. We're working through all of that with our companions, and that should be released soon. So if you've been thinking about Outlands and wondering why we have 750 people viewing this stream right now, now is a really good time to jump in and join us. And thanks a lot to Pwnstar for hosting this. Really appreciate your time and all of the content and videos and streaming that you do on a regular basis. It means a lot to us. And happy birthday, Expo.
Happy birthday, Expo. So in celebration of this plus Expo's birthday, I'm going to stick out 100 Prev coins for a marbles race. I'll put a link to my Discord and how you guys can get into that giveaway. The first, second, third, and fourth place will all get 25 Prev coins. So we'll do that. But dude, I really appreciate you giving me the chance to sit here and, your trust in me to not make a fool of you guys while you present, obviously, hours upon hours of stuff that you've worked on. And that means a lot to me, and I appreciate it. But this is really cool, man. I'm extremely excited for it. I really am. So thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Cool. All right. I'm gonna get this marbles race going for you guys, shall we?
I'm gonna hop off of here, but thank you, Pwn. Appreciate it, and thank you to everyone who tuned in and hit us up with your questions and suggestions, as always.
Yeah.
Oh God.
DM Luthius. He loves it.
It's all coming to me now.
I'm sure you're getting a bunch of DMs.
Talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.